and welcome to the C3 Method Podcast with your host, Robert Polenic. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. Today's podcast number 2302, and the title is Convenience versus Enjoyment. Right now, I'm dieting to get super lean by the end of the year. I made a very big push at the beginning of the process and lost 30 pounds in 40 days. I am now purposefully, because it sounds like a cop-out, but I'm actually purposefully slowing that rate down a little bit because whenever I started the diet, I knew that if I made some big initial changes, I had great motivation. My body was in a very responsive state because I was coming from high metabolism, eating normal foods. I was at like 277 pounds at the beginning of the year. I'm currently now in the low 230s. So I knew everything was in a good place where I could just hit it hard. So I did that, and I ended up starting, I think it was May 31st was like when I considered like my start date. And I really pushed 30 pounds in 40 days. So now my body would be more sensitive to the process. It went through 40 days of not very fun days. So the body would start to downregulate metabolism. It would start to feel more stressed. I would definitely start to have more unrecovered connective tissue stress, muscle tissue stress, CNS stress. There's adrenaline fatigue. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen as you destroy your body and try to lose a lot of fat really quickly. So what I want to do now is I want to continue to lose body fat. And I want to make sure that what I lose stays off. So the first 40 days, what I did was not something that I would believe would be sustainable. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want to sustain the rate of losing 30 pounds in 40 days. I wanted to have that happen. And then I want to switch over to behaviors that are more sustainable so I can continue to lose body fat, but the body doesn't rebound, it doesn't fight the process, it can heal up a little bit and continue to allow me to push for more fat loss. If I went too aggressive for too long, it would shut down and everything would become really hard and I'd have to eat extremely less calories and it kind of eventually plateaus. So now I can slow things down a little bit, let the body recover a little bit, and it will fight less and less and less against the process as a whole, and I can slowly manipulate my behaviors to more sustainable behaviors, so that way when I get down to being as lean as I would want, I can maintain the overwhelming majority of what has changed if, when I get to that point, my habits are more sustainable. An example is when I was really trying to push 30 pounds off in 40 days. My breakfast was a tub of cottage cheese, which was, I think, 3 cups of cottage cheese. I then had, I think it was like 2.5 cups of Greek yogurt for lunch. And then another tub of cottage cheese for like my post-workout. And then I had 16 ounces of chicken with pickles and sugar, like calorie-free, like 5 calorie per 2 tablespoon barbecue sauce. So that was my meals. That's what I ate. It was a tub of cottage cheese, a tub of Greek yogurt, a tub of cottage cheese, a pound of chicken with pickles and barbecue sauce. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. It's ridiculous. It's stupid, and in no way whatsoever would I ever recommend that somebody has to do that, but it works for me. My body does very well with that style of dieting. I have done diets, I talked about this in last week's podcast, I've lost 50 pounds in 10 weeks or less 3 different times, and one time I lost 50 pounds in 8 weeks. The diets at those moments were just challenges to see if I could do them. So I did the same kind of restrictive eating. I remember one of the diets, every meal, all I had was ground turkey, marinara sauce, and brown rice. I hate brown rice. I hate ground turkey. I think the texture is disgusting. But I knew that if I made the food that I had available to me disgusting, I wouldn't overeat it. But that was the only options I gave myself. Literally, that's what I got to eat. If I was hungry enough to eat it, I would eat it. If I wasn't hungry enough to eat that, and I wanted to eat anything else, then I wasn't actually hungry. Otherwise, if I was hungry, I would just eat the damn, turkey and rice. So that worked really well for those diets. This recent 40 days where I lost 30 pounds, I ate cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and then a pound of chicken. It worked. I got the 30 pounds off in 40 days. I hit my goal. But that is not sustainable, and it's disgusting. So it is not how I want to eat for the rest of my life. Now what I'm doing is I'm allowing myself to have more variety in meal choices. So if something is equal calorie and equal protein, then I can substitute that if I want. So for example, a close substitution for the cottage cheese would be Builder protein bars. And I can have 2 protein bars if I want instead of the cottage cheese. Is that, optimal and going to get me, the right balance of saturated and unsaturated and omega-6 and all blah, blah, blah. I take supplements for all that crap. And what I'm doing right now is temporary. So for this season of life, my body will survive. I do get blood work done twice a year, so I know actually if I'm actually killing myself or not. But this is all temporary. But I went from an extreme case where it was cottage cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, chicken, to now I'm allowing substitutions. Are these the substitutions in the way in which I'll eat for the rest of my life? Hell no. But if it got me from a rate of loss that was 30 pounds in 40 days, and maybe in the next 40 days, maybe my goal is only to lose 15, it'll be enough of a restriction and control to get the 15 off in 40 days, the next 40 days. But it also allows my body some recovery in regards to total caloric intake. It allows my willpower, my discipline, my motivation, my mindset, my emotional health, mental health, some recovery by allowing for options. So that's essentially the process I'm going through. And then once I get to the weight that I want to be, I'll then do equal calorie, equal protein, and allow freedom of choice of anything I want, assuming that it matches my intention for the day, good digestion quality, and I'm not substituting, Oreos and pizza every day. I still want to be eating healthy foods, but if I want to have, pizza once every 2 weeks, then sure as hell I'll go for it. Who cares? That kind of thing. So I want it to be more of a sustainable lifestyle, but that's later when I get to where I want to get to. So the title of the podcast was Convenience versus Enjoyment. How we decide what we eat between those two factors depends on a lot of things. So right now, I'm going to choose convenience over enjoyment. I want my meals to be quick, easy, low thought, don't really have to prep anything, don't have to think much, just grab it out of the fridge and go, or grab it out of the food pantry and go. I want it to be very convenient, very straightforward, very black and white as much as I can control that. And that's because I want progress. I just want to freaking make progress. The less variety I have, the more I can control. The less decisions I give myself, the less I have to worry about which decisions I'm making. So that's less emotional and mental fatigue. That's less decision fatigue. Less opportunities for me to make bad decisions. So when I'm really pushing for progress and I'm results driven, I'm going to choose convenience more than enjoyment. If at a point in which I start to want to make bad decisions or they start to trickle in, then I would recognize that I'm pushing too hard into convenience and maybe I do need to sprinkle in some enjoyment. Hopefully, though, we got a good stretch of convenience to where we made really good progress before we get to that burned out point. But when we get to that point, it's okay to allow some enjoyment. We just want to be able to bring in other foods, assuming that we are still controlling our calories and our protein and our major metrics to still get the results and outcomes that we want. Or we have to be willing to slow down the progress rate if we need to bring in some more enjoyment so we actually can sustain a rate of progress at all over time. So you might be doing something similar to what I did, where you have an initial burst where you're super duper diligent, everything's super strict, but then you start to loosen, so that way eventually what you've made progress-wise you can sustain because you're switching and loosening to sustainable habits. When we think of enjoyment versus convenience, the more you want to make progress and the more results you're driven by, like I need to lose X pounds or I want to do this by this date, we need to kind of understand, we need to accept that we're going to be focusing on convenience, not enjoyment. We're in a season where enjoyment does not help us. So if I want to make super amazing progress super quickly, I have to decide that I don't care about enjoyment. Enjoyment will not be one of the factors into the decisions that I make. And that's okay. Because at this moment, I'm results driven. I want XYZ by, ABC time frame. So I am willing to give up enjoyment. But that only works temporarily. Eventually, for long-term sustainability, we have to find a balance between convenience and enjoyment. Convenience because it makes it easy to make the right decisions, but sometimes we're not going to necessarily enjoy those. When I think of typical daily meal structures, people do well by focusing on convenience for breakfast and lunch, and focusing on enjoyment for dinner. That tends to be the best balance of convenience and enjoyment. If we choose convenience for breakfast and lunch, it allows us to be more consistent with actually eating something. We don't miss breakfast, we don't miss lunch. We're consistent with our foods, and consistency helps us lose body fat. So we want to focus on convenience. We're often also in a rush at breakfast or in a rush at lunch. So the more convenient choices we can make, the easier it is to be consistent. And then at dinner, when life slows down a little bit, when we have a chance to sit down and actually kind of process what's going on, it's smart for us to bring in some enjoyment factor, because if we've been convenience focused on breakfast and lunch, that starts to kind of wear us down a little bit. And, by golly, by the end of the day, I'd like to enjoy something, right? It's okay. So focus on some enjoyment in the evening. It's okay to enjoy your dinners. That's a great way to set up a daily structure, is breakfast and lunch, convenience focused, dinner, enjoyment focused. That will typically allow for the greatest sustainability long term of healthy habits that allow you to reach your goal, whether the goal is fat loss, muscle building, performance, general health, longevity, whatever the heck it might be. That's going to be a typical format that works well for most people. When we think of convenience versus enjoyment, we want to focus on convenience for breakfast and lunch so we're consistent, and then enjoyment for dinner so that way we don't emotionally and mentally burn out in the process over time. So I shared with you a little bit of the craziness of what I'm doing, and you don't have to do any of that, but I thought it might just be fun to get a little inside view of the chaos that I put myself through. But you can also hear then how I'm choosing convenience versus enjoyment for temporary progress. But as we said, for sustainability, we're going to want to find a balance. Convenience for breakfast and lunch, enjoyment for dinner. Awesome. If you have any questions, if you need anything, you can always reach out on our website, which is c3method.com. 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so it's C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can also find us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube. We're under the name C3 Method, so you can find us and follow us, and always send a message there as well. If you find the podcast helpful, please share it with more people. If you need anything, reach out on the platforms or on our website. We're always here, and we're always happy to help. Awesome. Okay, well, as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.